All right. So we talked about the energy technology evolution along two pathways and about merging transportation into the energy system, electricity as a fuel. Now to look at some of the remaining issues of environmentally sustainable transportation, this chapter will go through some details. So in terms of the background and introduction, this is a figure from this site here, which is showing the estimated vehicle miles traveled on all roads in the US. So you can see that it's generally gone up, and there are clear indications of the impact on travel by the ups and downs of the economy. So when the economy takes a serious hit, like here, the big financial crisis from 2007 into several years seriously dips in terms of the vehicle miles traveled because people lose jobs and various other related cascades happen. And of course, we have had a serious lockdown and large impacts on travel, lots of work from home situations, which dropped the VIMT quite precipitously in terms of trillions of miles on all roads. So this is almost 0.2 to 0.3 trillion mile drop, which is fairly significant. Of course, it has recovered by now. The CO2 emissions from the transportation sector of all transports like shipping, flying, and whatever else, and just the road transports. So obviously the road transport is dominant, and a little bit is added, well, quite a bit is added by the other transportations. And this also projects into the future what would be required in terms of the emissions from the transportation sector to achieve the 1.5 degrees centigrade global warming target by 2050 with a certain probability, or even 21. Yeah, this is 2050, and these two boxes here show different quartiles of the target. Okay, so this green line up here is to stay below 2 degrees centigrade. So both of them require that we drop the emission from transportation sector by quite a bit in terms of gigatons CO2 equivalent per year. The commitments that have been made in terms of the policies around the world by 2018 don't show much of a change in the expected emissions. This is a serious consideration, but the additional policies announced take us a little bit flatter, but still it increases by about 1 gigaton CO2 equivalent per year or so, and all of them are quite far from the targets of 2 degrees C or 1.5 degrees C, which is always a background for bending the curve, right? This is the bending the curve that we are talking about. Okay. To remind ourselves what we saw in the last chapter, where we had various types of distributed energy generation and the grid with the microgrids and controls given to utilities, consumers, and residences with various ways of managing intermittency and load following with fuel cells, hydrogen resource produced from electrolysis of curtailed energy going into that, and having a pipeline, as well as connecting the battery fuel cells, hydrogen vehicles, and so on to the grid. Okay, why is it doing that? Okay, so this is just an introduction. Basically, we will look at the various issues associated with the systemic changes needed in terms of behavioral changes, intelligence transportation systems, what are the ways to reduce vehicle miles traveled, what are the vehicles that are contributing to the various vehicle miles traveled, and so on. Okay, so it's a fairly simple, short chapter, but it follows up nicely on what we saw in the previous chapter in terms of energy technology and ideas to merge the transportation sector or integrate the transportation sector into the energy system, distributed generation, grid to vehicle charging, vehicle to grid give back when the vehicles are sitting idle, and all those good ideas that we discussed.